Okay, welcome back. So in this video, I'd like to go over how to form the present and imperfect subjunctive. I'm going to use another video to talk about the perfect and pluperfect subjunctive, and also some of the irregular subjunctive forms of sum and possum. But for this video, I just want to keep it sort of a little bit shorter, just to go over the basic ideas of how to form the present and imperfect. So I've got two different slides for going over this. What I'd like to talk about now is just the basic pattern for forming this verb. So it's really actually quite simple. And I've broken it down into a few different steps just for how to think through the process in your head. But I think the easiest way to sort of think this through is to compare it to the indicative verbs that we've seen so far. So I haven't written the paradigm here, but if you'll just recall on your own, the paradigm for amo for the active is amo, amas, amat. But the key idea is this a vowel here. And also for amor, amaris. So it goes in a similar way down that way. So, but the basic idea is that we have our, this is what we've been doing for months. We have our stem vowel here, which is a long A, which is the first conjugation stem vowel. So essentially what happens with the subjunctive is, and it's really actually kind of a beautiful and an interesting thing that happens across the language, is we just have a vowel shift. And this is pretty consistent, and this is very consistent across the various conjugations as well. What I find the easiest way to understand this with is our two types of verbs that the first and second conjugation that begin with e and long a and long e both shift to long e or an ea. So this is an example, moneam or moneos, and it's subjunctive. That's the long a right there. Okay, and essentially the subjunctive is formed very consistently in this way. So the basic steps for getting this then is the present stem. So we take our stem, which is just our infinitive with the ending chopped off. And then essentially what happens is the vowel just changes. So it changes from long A to long E, depending on which conjugation you're in. And then after that, all you do is you just put the endings on the end of it. So in this case, it's amem or amer for our active and passive present subjunctive. So, and across the board, the endings stay consistent. Our active endings are exactly the same, atis, st, mus, tis, int. But the only thing that changes for our present active is we use the M instead of the long O for that first present form. But that M should be fairly familiar to you. It's essentially the M from the, if you want to think about it in this way, the M from the imperfect, like from laudabam. That M just kind of sticks around, and it was used for the subjunctive as well. So that's where that comes from. Otherwise, our passive forms actually follow this pattern in the first conjugation exactly how you would expect. Amer, ameris, ameter, amemer, amemini, amenter. So notice as well, we have our stem, our normal present stem, and then we just change our vowel from long A to long E, and then just stick our endings on it. So very, very simple and very consistent. And I've just given another example of a third conjugation form here, the third I stem, capio, because this is a slightly more complicated, but still fairly regular pattern. So instead of forming our active indicative as copio, which we are used to doing, we just stick this, instead of this EO ending, we change our, for the first person form, it's a little bit different, but essentially you just change the IO to an IA. I wrote IE here because some of the other forms also use the E, but the idea is still the same. IO to IA. So if you think of our basic stem vowel being I or short E, because that form shows up in various places, it essentially just gets transformed into an A. And this, in fact, happens throughout all of our third conjugation and fourth conjugation. The I/E just gets transformed into an A. I wrote I here because it occasionally does show up as an I as well, but it's the same pattern. So instead of copio or copis, copit, copias, so you change that short vowel to a long A, and then add your ending. So it is a bit tricky if you aren't completely aware of which conjugation your verb belongs to. But here's another reason for learning principal parts and being fully aware of which conjugation this belongs to. Because if you didn't know, for example, this might be potentially confusing. You might think that this is especially with this form, copiat, it looks exactly like an indicative, a present indicative form of the first conjugation. And then notice as well, the exact same pattern happens here. Instead of the copior for the present passive, copiris, copitur, we turn our I or long E into an I and long A. So we keep the stem. It's an I stem, so we keep the I here, and then we just add or transform the E into a long A. So this is how we form the present subjunctive. So I've only given a couple examples here, but I would encourage you, as practice, just go through several other verbs of various conjugations, particularly of the second, third, and fourth. Maybe do a couple more of these as well, just to really get sort of used to the changes that happen. So this would be a really good way to practice with your paradigms. But I'll leave these here just as examples for you. So, all right, and then for our next section, I wanted to just briefly introduce the concept of the imperfect subjunctive as well. So the imperfect subjunctive is very simple, and we'll also see when we get to the pluperfect subjunctive that it stays very consistent as well. But it might be a bit confusing if you're first looking at this. But once you get used to the habit, it actually makes quite a bit of sense, and is also quite consistent. So, but essentially the rule is you take your present infinitive, so whatever present active infinitive you have, I should say present active infinitive, because it isn't the passive form, for amare or capere. And then the only next step you do to form the imperfect subjunctive is you just add there's no vowel shifting, there's no changing. All you do is you just add the correct ending for that word. So whether it's active or passive, I put a little list of a table of endings here. And this is essentially how you form it. If I want to say the first person, second person, third, first plural, second plural, third plural, all I do is I just take the present active infinitive and stick those endings on there. And it's also the same with the passive. So amar or amare, see, it's still the same. It's the exact same thing across the board. It's just the present active infinitive. And then you just use the special passive ending. And notice as well, it's the same thing for capere It's just the endings attached right along with the present active infinitive. Notice in a couple places as well, the E of the infinitive is actually lengthened as well. So that is kind of an interesting change. It isn't necessarily something that's that important to memorize, but it is something curious to note. Across the board, we have this lengthening because this vowel was not originally long. So there, but anyways, that is essentially the way to form the imperfect subjunctive. In the next video, I'll go over how to do the perfect and pluperfect, and then we'll start going over some examples of the subjunctive in action. So stay tuned and have a good one.